ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ ප්‍රථම වරට SLT 4G වෙතින් දැන් PO TV නරඹන්න. ඉදිරියටම ගෙන යන SLT 4G.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට
Tonight, increasing numbers. Number of COVID-19 infected in Sri Lanka rises to 142 with 20 fresh cases added to today's tally, marking the highest reported on a single day. Enforcing discipline. Over 7,300 curfew violators arrested. Police say no seized vehicles will be released until COVID-19 threat is eliminated. Second day under lockdown. Atalugama and Akurana enters the second day of complete isolation. In search of a remedy, local experts to launch research into Japanese anti-flu drug found to have reduced COVID-19 complications. All this and much more coming up on this Tuesday, the 31st of March 2020.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9.
69 SMS කර රුපියල් මිලියන 3ක මුල්තැන්ගේ උපකරණ දිනාගෙන අවුරුද්දෙම කුස්සිය ටයිම් සේව් කරගන්න.
ඔබේ ආරක්ෂාව රටේ රැකවරණයයි. ශ්‍රී ලංකා ඉන්ෂුරන්ස්.
Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and a warm welcome. This is your English news service on AdaDerana 24. Marking the highest single-day cases recorded in Sri Lanka, the overall COVID-19 infections jumped by 20 cases to 142 today, with 124 from the tally being active cases. 2 persons have already succumbed to the virus in the country, with the last rites of the second victim performed last evening.
Sri Lanka's second COVID-19 death was a 64-year-old resident of Puruthota in Negombo. His remains were taken to the Negombo Municipal Council cemetery last night amid police protection. The final rites were performed at midnight yesterday in accordance with international quarantine regulations. The victim's travel history has revealed that he had attended a wedding ceremony at a relative's house in Jaffna. An inspection by public health inspectors also revealed that he had visited several residences in his own village. His 2 sons, who are employed in Colombo and Katunayaka, have also visited his residence on several occasions. According to public health inspectors, the victim, who suffered from a heart condition and a respiratory disorder, had recently been treated at 2 private medical centres in Vallavidya and Periyamulla in Negombo. Due to his condition, he was later admitted to a private hospital in Negombo, following which he was diagnosed with COVID-19 yesterday morning. Authorities are yet to ascertain how the victim contracted the deadly virus. Security forces have also isolated the Takya Road in Puruthota of Negombo, where the victim resided, cutting it off from any external links. Meanwhile, today health authorities inspected his residence, and during which it was revealed that 16 persons, including several children, were in the house. Later, health authorities took measures to quarantine those family members and the family of his son residing in Katunayaka.
Yes. Darana. Tani. Me occupando.
Health officials say that places where the victim received treatment as well as the doctors and the staff that treated him are quarantined. Meanwhile, a ward at the Colombo South Teaching Hospital, commonly known as the Kalubovila Hospital, was shut today after a patient there tested positive for COVID-19. The patient in question is reportedly a 60-year-old from Moratuwa. Measures were taken to direct other patients who were being treated at the said ward and its staff to a 14-day quarantine process. The patients will be transferred to the Homagama Base Hospital for quarantine, while the ward staff is to be quarantined at the Teacher Training College in Maharagama. The number of COVID-19 patients reported in Sri Lanka meanwhile has risen to 142, with 20 fresh cases being detected in the country today, the highest one-day tally. Since the outbreak was first reported in the island, 16 COVID-19 positive patients have been discharged from hospitals after making complete recoveries from the virus.
කොරෝනා වෛරසය පැතිරීම වළක්වන්න සබන් යොදා දෑත් සෝදන්න.
The ongoing curfew in the districts of Colombo, Gampaha, Kaluthara, Putlam, Kandy and Jaffna districts, which have been identified as high-risk zones, will remain until further notice. But in all other districts, curfew will be lifted at 6 a.m. tomorrow, with a window of 8 hours for free movement until curfew measures are reimposed at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Travelling to and from all districts is completely prohibited, except for the purpose of providing essential services. Those who misuse regulations introduced with the aim of ensuring the smooth functioning of essential services will be severely dealt with under the law. Meanwhile, the village of Atalugama in the Kaluthara district and the village of Akurana in the Kandy district have been declared as completely isolated areas, with no persons allowed to enter or leave the two villages until further notice.
The island-wide curfew was imposed on 20th of March in order to curb the spread of the novel coronavirus within the country. Since the 20th, the curfew has been in effect in the districts of Colombo, Gampaha and Jaffna for 11 days, with only one window of free movement being given, which lasted for 8 hours on the 24th. In the Kaluthara district, the curfew was only lifted twice and it was lifted on 5 times in other districts. However, the government imposed curfew in Colombo, Gampaha and Kaluthara until further notice on the 24th of this month, following their identification as COVID-19 high-risk zones. Later, the districts of Kandy, Putlam and Jaffna were also added to that list. As things stand, the curfew covers the entire island. Although people are expected to stay away from roads during curfew hours, the situation in Colombo, which is a COVID-19 high-risk zone, seemed quite different. Meanwhile, the police headquarters released a statement saying that people occupying roads without curfew permits will be arrested without warrants and they will be prosecuted under the Quarantine Ordinance and Penal Code. Furthermore, if convicted by court, the suspects will be subjected to a fine and a prison sentence, while their vehicles will remain under police custody until the pandemic is eradicated. In the meantime, 261 people were arrested and 96 vehicles were taken into custody by police for violating the curfew during the 6 hours between 6 a.m. and noon today. Since the 20th of March, 7,619 people have been arrested, along with 1,864 vehicles for violating the curfew. In the meantime, Presidential Secretariat informed last evening that the curfew in the districts identified as COVID-19 high-risk zones will remain in place until further notice. As for the rest of the country, the curfew will be lifted 6 a.m. tomorrow before being reimposed at 2 p.m. In Talawakale, regional medical health officers in the area of Agarapatana directed several lorry drivers who had transported tea leaves to a factory in the area. The drivers in question had not obtained the required certification from relevant public health inspectors when crossing district lines. Elsewhere, a suspect was arrested by police for the legal sale of liquor amidst the curfew by the Minuangoda police. Meanwhile, Head of Traffic Police DIG Ajit Rohana also urged those who arrived in the country since the 16th of March and have failed to register with the police to do so immediately and self-quarantine. The window for them to register will close at 12 p.m. tomorrow, and those failing to do so will be strictly dealt with according to law.
අවශ්‍යයි ඔබේ මුළු පවුලම 100% දක්වා විෂ බීජ වලින් ආරක්ෂා කර දෙයි.
Residents of Akurana and Atalugama entered the second day of complete isolation as the villages are being barred from entry or exit owing to COVID-19 patients being diagnosed from the areas. The authorities meanwhile took measures to self-quarantine associates of COVID-19 infected in the areas upon perusal of their travel history.
Atalugama is home to 15,162 persons belonging to 3,057 families in 7 Grama Seva divisions. Steps were taken to provide food to the residents of the village, strongly adhering to health precautions. Akurana, which is also under complete isolation, provides shelter to 4,267 people of 997 families. The main roads leading to the village, including the Telambugahavatta road, have been closed by using roadblocks. However, the process to supply essential commodities for the villagers continue. In such a backdrop, the intelligence personnel discovered a vehicle from a garage in the area of Singhapitiya Gampala this morning, which transported the COVID-19 infected, identified from Akurana. The vehicle had transported the COVID-19 infected to his residence from Katunayaka Airport. The owner of the van, a resident of Pusallava Gampala, had given his van to a company running rental cars in Negombo. Driver of the vehicle is identified as a resident of Ragala in Nuwara. Meanwhile, 9 persons who had arrived in Monaragala from the areas of North East and Polonnaruwa were made to self-quarantine. Meanwhile, 321 arrivals to the country who underwent the quarantine process were released today. 206 of them were sheltered at the SLAF base in Vaunia, while 104 in Periyakadu facility and 11 in Poonani. Accordingly, out of the 3,664 persons taken under quarantine at 48 centres, 2,021 persons have now been released. A total of 1,773 people still remain in quarantine centres, including 9 foreigners.
Sri Lankan missions in South Asia are working towards assisting and facilitating the many Sri Lankan expatriates in the region and are in close contact with Sri Lankan communities overseas in the wake of the COVID-19 epidemic. The Foreign Ministry said in a statement that a database of Sri Lankan students and other expatriates are being compiled by the missions with a view to keeping in close contact and ensuring their welfare at all times. Sri Lanka recently requested all Sri Lankan expatriates to remain in their current locations until the risk of COVID-19 is minimized. The government assures that any request from Sri Lankans to return home will be considered once the spread of the virus is contained in the country. The Foreign Ministry meanwhile assured that Sri Lankan missions in New Delhi, Chennai, Mumbai, Kathmandu, Islamabad, Dhaka, Kabul and Malé have established hotlines and social media groups to remain networked with Sri Lankans overseas and community organizations and representatives in order to assist them remain in a safe environment and also have access to food and other necessities. The Sri Lankan missions have also intervened to ensure clearances for visa extension where necessary for Sri Lankan nationals. As for Sri Lankan students enrolled in universities in affected countries, the Foreign Ministry says missions have been liaising with respective academic institutions and are in constant dialogue with student groups. As an additional measure enabling the government to reach out worldwide and provide assistance during emergencies, the Foreign Ministry invites all Sri Lankans overseas to register on the online web portal Contact Sri Lanka, which was launched last week. Now, experts in Sri Lanka are about to launch research into the Japanese anti-flu drug, which has been found to be useful in reducing complications of the COVID-19 virus. Chairman of the State Pharmaceutical Corporation, Dr. Prasanna Gunasena, said that this will be coordinated with the intention and intervention of the National Drug Regulatory Commission. The stock of the drugs from Japan was shipped into the country yesterday. However, it is not yet established whether the drug can be used for coronavirus-infected patients, and it is still under research level. Previously, Japan's health minister said the government was considering using a drug called Avigan, also known as favipiravir, to treat patients affected by COVID-19. More than a month later, favipiravir has shown promise in 2 trials involving coronavirus patients, with more countries all desperate for an answer to COVID-19 to prepare tests and to find out its effectiveness. Now, recently during a discussion at Hyde Park, I spoke to Dr. Paba Paliyavadana, the Deputy Director of Public Health, when she revealed that Sri Lanka was already using certain anti-malaria drugs in the treatment of COVID-19 patients. There's a lot of talk about anti-malaria and Ebola drugs being effective in dealing with COVID-19, this pandemic. Would you give us some perspective into this?
Yes, so there are several drugs, of course, have been identified as effective against COVID-19, and chloroquine is one of them. Chloroquine is a drug that we've used in malaria. And Sri Lanka has been using it for years. And so now Sri Lanka is using chloroquine for patients who are positive for COVID-19. And that's the decision taken at the government level, the ministry level, to treat them with hydrochloroquine, because which is of course available with us. So it is not a problem for Sri Lanka to give chloroquine to patients with of positive.
But so that does not mean somebody, if they assume that they have mild symptoms, they could just walk to a pharmacy and then...
no, it should not be the way, no. So people can't decide on their own, and the doctor should see, and also he should think of this could be a case of COVID, and so then we do the testing, and we want to confirm, and then we give medicines. Why are we sort of, giving some other drug or unnecessarily try to treat patients with chloroquine?
To stay with us, we'll return with more news on the other side of this break. With the country in lockdown and people feeling the squeeze, AdaDerana is striving to make the lives of those who are in need of help the most during these trying times a little bit easier. We launched a program where rations are donated to religious establishments across the island, through which the goods are distributed among the people. An apparel company meanwhile joined hands with us in this endeavour, making their contribution to AdaDerana. You too can contribute in this humanitarian effort by getting in touch with us by contacting the hotlines 0770 701010 and 0772 466 488. In the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, Sri Lanka entered into a lockdown situation as last measures to prevent a mass outbreak of the COVID-19 patients within the country. The government then took steps to provide a host of services, with the primary needs being medicine and food. For problems regarding food and medicine deliveries or other essentials, your first call should be to the Grama Niladhari of your area. The Prime Minister's office made a telephone numbers available to the general public in order to report any issues regarding food and medicine services provided. Meanwhile, the Registrar General's Department has made arrangements for the registration of mortgage deeds related to essential services. The various departments can be contacted through the numbers 0705 or rather 070-158-8433, 071-3483-238, 0714-485-564, 070-3899-535. Taking you to business news, the Colombo Stock Exchange today announced that the bourse will remain closed for trading until the island-wide curfew is lifted. In a statement, the Colombo Stock Exchange said the decision was taken in pursuant to a guidance received from the Securities and Exchange Commission of Sri Lanka. Market remained closed since the 25th of March in view of the extension of curfew in the districts of Colombo, Gampaha and Puttlam. Previously, trading halts were implemented due to an extreme decline in trading index as a result of the share prices falling rapidly. But given the ongoing situation in the country, the CSE today noted that trading at the bourse will continue to remain closed until the curfew is lifted. Wall Street was set to open lower today, with the S&P 500 headed for its worst first quarter since 1938 as evidence grew of the scale of the damage caused by the collapse in oil prices and business activity due to the coronavirus pandemic. Technology firms Apple and Microsoft fell in pre-market trading after a recent rally that was spurred by investors looking for stocks likely to withstand an economic hit. Confidence in equity markets had crept back in the past week thanks to an unprecedented $10 trillion global monetary and fiscal stimulus, but Wall Street's indicator of future volatility is still close to levels last seen in year 2008. Sliding from the second highs of mid-February, the Dow Jones and S&P 500 indexes are now set to end the quarter more than 18% lower from the start of the year as the health crisis deepens in the United States and disrupts supply chains. The declines have erased more than $5 trillion from the value of S&P 500 firms in the first quarter, and investors fear corporate defaults and more mass layoffs going into the second quarter. The blue chip Dow is on course for its biggest quarterly percentage decline since 1987, and the tech-savvy Nasdaq set to close out its worst first 3 months of the year since year 2008. Oil stocks in the meantime were among the big pre-market gainers, boosted by a rebound in prices from 18-year lows after the United States and Russia agreed to discuss stabilizing energy markets. Stay with us. We'll return with more news. Welcome back. Officials across India are searching for hundreds of people who attended a religious event in the capital that has set off several COVID-19 clusters. At least 6 regions have reported cases that can be directly tracked and traced to the days-long congregation at a mosque. Delhi officials cleared the building where more than 1,000 people have been stranded since the government imposed a lockdown last week. The state health minister said that at least 24 have tested positive so far. They are among some 300 people who showed symptoms and have been moved to various hospitals to be tested, he told the media. Another 700 have been shifted into quarantine centers, he added. With a host of services being provided by the government to ease the pressure on the people when the curfew is in effect, the Prime Minister's office set up several hotlines for the general public to contact regarding issues they may face in accessing medical and food services. With a similar aim, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa too announced a slew of relief measures yesterday, which covers an array of demographics from senior citizens to the self-employed.
As the countrywide lockdown continues, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has decided to provide more financial and material relief to the people affected by the spread of COVID-19 under 10 categories. The President has instructed the Presidential Task Force on Essential Services to grant a one-off allowance of 5,000 rupees for low-income families and persons. Accordingly, 5,000 rupees will be paid to all senior citizen allowance recipients and to the recently registered senior citizens. Meanwhile, a 5,000 rupee allowance will also be given to disabled persons and newly registered disabled persons. Farmers who are registered under the Farmers Insurance Scheme too will also receive an allowance of 5,000 rupees, while a similar allowance will be provided to kidney patients and newly registered patients. Furthermore, measures have been taken to provide a 5,000 rupee allowance to all Samurdhi beneficiaries and to the recently registered Samurdhi beneficiaries. Steps will also be taken to pay the April salary for public sector employees, and loan payment deductions from salaries will be suspended until further notice. In the meantime, relief on lease installments will be given for self-employed persons, including owners of three-wheelers, trucks, school buses and vans, and self-employed motorists. What's more, reliefs will also be provided for private businesses which are incapable of paying employees' wages due to the prevailing economic situation. It has also been decided to deliver THRIPOSHA and other nutritional supplements directly to the residences of expectant mothers and families with malnourished children. Program of supplying medicines to people at home is being implemented successfully in many parts of the island.
හැම ෆාමසි එකටම අපි උපදෙස් දීලා තියෙනවා ගන්න පුළුවන් උපරිම බෙහෙත් ප්‍රමාණය මාසික ප්‍රමාණය පමණයි කියලා. මේ කරන ක්‍රමවේදය පිළිබඳ අපහැදිලිතාවයක් තියෙනවා නම් අපේ ෆෝන් නම්බර්ස් අපි දීලා තියෙනවා. සිංහලෙන් හරි ඉංග්‍රීසියෙන් හරි කතා කරන්න පුළුවන් 072 072 2 720 දෙමළ භාෂාවෙන් 072 06 06
Meanwhile, a pilot project to provide hospital clinical services using video technology was launched today at the Lady Ridgeway Children's Hospital under the supervision of Health Minister Pavitra Vanniyarachi. Every patient can access this service by downloading the ODOC mobile app. You can also get information about this service by contacting 077 077 3333. In view of the spread of COVID-19, 50 new beds were donated to the new ward of the Kandy National Hospital, along with a medical consignment, including 10 body temperature measuring equipment at the Askiriya temple. Under the instructions of Venerable Urulavatte Dhammarakkhita Thera of the Askiriya chapter from the Mahiyangane temple, a contribution of Rs 6 million was donated for the cause. Chief Prelate of the Askiriya chapter, Most Venerable Varakagoda Sri Jnanaratana Thera, was among those present at the occasion. In the meantime, the founder of the online store Alibaba, Jack Ma, donated 1 million face masks to Sri Lanka. The Sri Lankan embassy in Colombo today announced that the consignment was released from the Katunayaka airport and will be handed over to the Health Ministry tomorrow. Despite the ongoing situation in the country, vendors at the Manning Market faced difficulties as they had to reduce the prices of goods below the government-regulated prices. Dambulla and Kapitipul economic centres meanwhile functioned as usual. Meanwhile, the Bank of Ceylon has launched a mobile ATM service in several areas to facilitate public transactions.
Wraps up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining us. Good night.